Hi, welcome everybody. This is Yohan, and in this episode, I would love to share 4 delightful projects that hopefully will cheer you up this holiday season. These projects are great to use up your fabric scraps or leftover fabric from your Christmas quilt, perhaps. The first project that we're gonna make is this trivet or pot holder. I love pot holder in my kitchen and can't never get enough of it. This one is measuring approximately 8 3/4 inches squares. Second project that we're gonna make is this super cute mug rug. So I love having mug rug for my coffee time or tea time. It makes it much more fun and enjoyable. The measurements of these are approximately 10 3/4 by 5 1/4 inch. Now for the third project, we're gonna make this drawstring bag. This one is inspired from the Japanese rice bag design. The measurements are approximately 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch. This will make a great project bag for knitter or crocheter especially, or you can use this as a gift bag or use this as a scrap bag. So you make your scrap bag out of scraps to store more scraps indeed. For the last project, we're gonna make this awesome patchwork tote bag. This is a straightforward tote bag, very fun and functional. The measurements are approximately 16 inches wide by 13.5 inches tall by 5 inches deep. It comes with 3 slip pockets inside and a zipper pocket as well. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial and I wish you all a wonderful Christmas and holidays. And without further ado, let's get started. Alright, we're gonna start by making the trivet or the pot holder. So go ahead and cut your fabric as per what the measurements called for. You should see the measurements on the screen right now, or you may download the PDF pattern with the cutting diagram as well. I will have the link in the description box down below. Now feel free to lay out your fabric in different orders. Just move the strips around, especially if your fabric has directional print. So just do as you please. Once you're happy with the layout, go ahead and sew fabric A and B together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Press the seams towards one side. Now go ahead and sew fabric C, of course with 1/4 inch of seam allowance as well. And then press towards one side. So we are done piecing our block, and this piece should measure 9.5 inch by 9.5 inch. Next, we're gonna prepare the batting. So this one here is 100% cotton batting, and this one is an insulated batting. This will make your pot holder heat resistant. You can easily find this kind of batting on Amazon. Now go ahead and layer this starting from the insulated batting at the very bottom, and then the cotton batting in the middle, and then the fabric right side down. And then quilt as desired. I simply do straight lines on diagonal angle about a couple of inches apart, using my walking foot of course. Trim off the excess batting. If you wish to add the hanging loop, this is the time to do it. So go ahead and cut up a small rectangle measuring 4 inch by 2 inch. And then you want to do the typical folding and pressing method, starting by folding the short sides in half, just like that, and then press, and then fold the long edges towards the center fold, and then press, and then fold everything in half again, and then press, and then sew the long sides with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. And you should end up with a 1/2 inch wide strip. Now fold the strip in half, just like that, and then position that on the top right side of your pot holder about 1.5 inches away from the edge, and then clip that in place. Then go ahead and base stitch with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now take the lining fabric, or the one that will be sitting at the bottom, so lay them right sides together just like that, clip them in place, and then stitch all around, leaving about 4 to 5 inches of opening at one of the side. Start sewing from one of the opening point, and you want to sew with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. And once you've done that, you want to trim off all the corners. Just be careful not to cut through the stitches though. Now turn your pot holder right side out through the opening hole. Poke the corners. You can use your knitting needle like I do here, or point turner, or chopstick. Make them nice and flat. Now fold the opening hole towards the wrong side, about 3/8 of an inch, just like so. Secure that in place with some sewing clips, and then go ahead and top stitch all around with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And that's it, the potholder is done. To make the mug rack, we're gonna work on block number 2. So go ahead and prepare the fabric pieces and lay them out just like so. Now go ahead and sew fabric D and E together with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Press the seams towards one side. Then go ahead and sew fabric F, again with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, and press. So our block is done, and this should measure 6 inch by 6 inch. Now you want to go ahead and make another one. Again, if you use directional print fabric like I do here, you may want to change the order of the layout just to make it more interesting. And here I've already sewn my second block. As you can see here, it has a different layout. Now if you use solid fabric or non-directional print though, you don't have to change the layout of your block. Simply rotate it around to get desired look. Now let's go ahead and sew the blocks together with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Now take a piece of fusible fleece that you cut 1/2 inch smaller or around. You can also use batting instead. Fuse the fusible fleece to the wrong side of the outer fabric. Of course, you want to center the position and follow the manufacturer's instructions. Cut a piece of rectangle for the lining fabric. Use another fun fabric as well. This way you can make the mug rack reversible. Now lay the outer fabric and the lining fabric right sides together, pin them in place, and then sew all around. Again, you want to leave about 4 inches of opening to turn this piece inside out. You want to sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And once you've done that, you can clip all the corners. Just be careful not to cut through the stitches. And then turn the fabric inside out through the opening hole. Poke the corners, make them nice and neat. Now fold the raw edges of the opening towards the inside, about 3/8 of an inch, and then clip or pin it in place to secure the fold. And once everything is secured, go ahead and top stitch all around with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And voila, the mug rack is done. To make the drawstring bag, we're gonna use the same block pattern as the potholder, which is the block number 1. And you will need to make 4 of them. Of course, lay them out in different variation if you've got directional print to make them more interesting. Cut 6 pieces of 9.5 inch squares. I like using different variety of fabrics just to make this project much more fun. Layer each block with a piece of quilt batting that you cut a slight larger than the fabric, and then quilt as desired. Feel free to play around with different designs. I simply use my walking foot and do variety of wavy lines and straight lines. Each block is a slight different than the other. You may also hand quilt if you fancy hand quilting. And here I've already quilted all of my exterior pieces, including the bottom base as well. This one here I did wavy line on diagonal angle. This one I also did wavy line but on vertical angle. On this block I did straight stitches on diagonal angle about a couple of inches apart. With this block I did straight stitches vertically a couple of inches apart. And for the bottom base I also did simple wavy lines. Next we're gonna work on the drawstring tabs. So go ahead and prepare your fabrics. You will need 4 of these little rectangles. First, we're gonna hem the short sides. So go to your ironing board and then fold the short side towards the wrong side, about 1/4 of an inch, and then press, and then fold it one more time, just like that, and then press. And then do the same to the opposite side. And then go ahead and stitch along the folded edges with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now fold the short sides in half, wrong sides together, just like so, and then press. Position the tab on the top center of the exterior. If you want, you can first mark the center point of both the tab and the exterior simply by folding it in half and then mark it with the disappearing fabric marker. Now go ahead and match the center point of the tab and the exterior fabric and then clip them in place, and then go ahead and stitch with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. So you want to install the drawstring tabs to all 4 exterior pieces except of the bottom base, of course. For the drawstring strap, I'm going to do a bit of shortcut here by using bias tape. So this is a pre-made double fold bias tape, 1/2 inch wide, widely available in the craft store. So if you happen to have one in your stash, a package of this will be enough, or you can mix and match if you've got some left over. So you'll need to cut 2 strips measuring 40 inches long. And of course, feel free to make your own drawstring strap if that's what you prefer. If your strips are a bit wrinkly like mine here, you can simply give this a quick ironing. And then go ahead and stitch along the edges with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Start sewing the open edges first. And that's it, the drawstring straps are done. Very quick and simple. Alright, now we're ready to assemble the exterior pieces. So go ahead and take 2 blocks and lay them right sides together. And then sew along one of the sides with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Alright, now you want to take another block and do the same like before. So go ahead and lay these right sides together and then sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now take the last piece and join that in place. So here I've already sewn all 4 fabrics next to each other. Just make sure that all of your fabric pieces are facing the same direction with the drawstring tabs positioned on top. Now you want to meet the side edges, right sides together, and then sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Alright, so you should end up with something like this. Now we're gonna attach the bottom base. So I'm gonna flip my fabric so the bottom part is facing up. Now I'm gonna place my bottom base on top and then clip them in place. So what I like to do, I like to first matching up the center point of the base with the center point of the fabric. So I simply fold the fabric in half, meeting the seams, and then mark it with a fabric marker. Match them together and then clip. Here I've already matched and clipped all the center point of each side. Now I'm gonna go ahead and clip the rest of this. And once everything is secured, go ahead and stitch all around with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And you want to sew one side at a time. It may get a little tricky around the corner if you've never done this before, but it's very forgiving though, so you don't have to make it perfectly flat as long as you get it stitched through. Alright, so the back exterior is done. You can turn this to the right side if you want to see how it looks so far. Now sew the lining pieces exactly the same way as you did the exterior pieces. However, when you sew the bottom base, you want to leave about 4 to 5 inches of opening in order to turn this bag inside out later. Now with your exterior piece wrong side out and your lining right side out, you want to insert the lining into the exterior. So the right side of the lining and the right side of the exterior fabric should be touching each other at this point. First you want to match the seams and then clip them in place, and then go ahead and secure everything with some sewing clips. Once everything is secured, go ahead and sew all around with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, go ahead and turn this piece inside out through the opening hole. Now you want to neaten up the top edges. If necessary, you may want to iron this real quick. And then top stitch all around. You can either use an 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, whichever one more comfortable for you. Now fold the raw edges of the opening hole towards the wrong side, about 3/8 of an inch, and then stitch to close the opening. Now go ahead and place the lining back inside. Now we're going to thread the drawstring strap to the tabs. Now take one of the strap and then feed the end of the strap into one of the tab, and then go to the next one and then thread this all around. Once you've thread the last tab, you can distribute the gather evenly. Now hold both ends and then make a knot to secure this in place. Now we're going to thread the second strip starting from the exact opposite of the first strip. So just go by where you put the knot and then start exactly at the opposite spot. So go ahead and thread this all around the same way like before. Again, you want to make a knot along the edges to secure the strap. So you should end up with something like this. Now to close the back, you simply want to pull the drawstring, just like that. And that's it guys, your drawstring bag is done. For the tote bag, we're going to use block number 2 or the same block that we make for the mug rack project. So you want to make 18 blocks. As you can see here, I make my blocks in different variations of layout because I want my bag to look scrappy. Again guys, if you use solid or non-directional print fabric, you can simply work on one layout and then rotate the blocks around when you piece them together. Lay out 9 blocks in 3 rows, just like shown here. You can lay out your blocks as you desired. The scrappier it is, the better. Once you're happy with the layout of your block, you can go ahead and piece them together with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, 1 row at a time. And here I've already sewn and pressed my first row. You can either press the seams towards one side, alternating the directions of each row, or you can press the seams open if that's what you prefer. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew the second row. Now we're going to sew the first and the second row together. So I like to match the seams and pin them together, and then sew with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, and then press. Alright, so the front exterior patchwork is done. Now go ahead and repeat the same for the back exterior. Once you've sewn the patchwork, you want to apply fusible fleece to the wrong side of your exterior pieces. Cut the fusible fleece 1/2 an inch smaller or around, and then go ahead and quilt as desired. I quilt this with simple diamond shape design using my walking foot. Next, you want to cut 2.5 inch square notches on both bottom corners of your exterior pieces in order to box the corners of the back later. Next, we're going to work on the strap. So I want my strap to be 1 inch wide, so I cut my strip 4 inches wide and the length is 26 inches. And you want to apply fusible woven interfacing that you cut 2 inches wide and center the position just like so. Fold and press the fabric just like the usual strap making method, and then stitch the long edges with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Position the strap about 4 inches from the side edges. Obviously it has to be the same distance on both sides. Clip them in place, making sure that your strap isn't twisted at this point, and then base stitch along the top edges with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Next, we're gonna work on the back interior, so go ahead and prepare your lining pieces. First, we're gonna sew the slip pockets, so go ahead and lay your pocket pieces right sides together, and then sew along the long sides with 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Press the seams open and then turn the pocket piece inside out and then press it again and then top stitch along the top edges. Position the pocket piece on the right side of one of the lining piece about 4 inches down from the top. We're gonna divide this pocket into 3 slots. So with your fabric marker, go ahead and draw the dividing line just like shown here. Then you want to sew on those lines and then sew the sides and the bottom as well. So you should end up with 3 decent sized slip pockets. If you wish to add zipper pocket to the back, this is the time to do it. So go ahead and prep your pocket lining piece. Apply a little bit of fusible woven interfacing to the wrong side of the pocket piece, just around the area where we're gonna draw the template. About 1 inch down from the top edge. You want to also apply the interfacing to the wrong side of the lining piece. Again, just around the area of the zipper template. About 3 inches down from the top, and of course center the position. For the zipper template, you want to draw a rectangle measuring 8 inch by 3/8 of an inch, just like shown on the screen right now. Draw a straight line right on the center. You want to draw the template about 1.5 inches down from the top edge and of course center the position. Lay your pocket panel on the right side of the lining panel, about 2.5 inches down from the top edge, obviously making sure that the position is centered. Now pin them in place and then sew on the outer lines of the template. Once you've sewn the template, go ahead and cut the center line up to the tip of the little triangles and then cut the diagonal lines of the triangle. Start cutting from the center point, and as you get to the corner of the triangle, just be careful not to cut through the stitches. Now turn your pocket to the wrong side. Use your iron to press and neaten up the template. Next, you want to prepare the zipper. So I use regular all-purpose zipper here. And your zipper should be at least 9 inches long. As usual, you want to apply some basting tape to the edges of your zipper tape and then peel off the top layer. Position the template on top of the zipper. Center the position of the zipper teeth. Use your fingers to adjust the position of the zipper. Make it nice and neat. And once you're happy with how it looks, go ahead and sew all around with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Trim off any excess zipper about 1/4 of an inch away from the seam line. Now fold the bottom edge of the pocket up towards the top edge, aligning the edges. Pin them in place and then sew along the sides and the top with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And of course, you want to make sure that your lining fabric is out of the way when you sew the pocket. Alright, so our zipper pocket is done. Next, go ahead and install the magnetic snap closure about a couple of inches down from the top edge. You want to install the male magnetic snap to the front side of the lining and the female magnetic snap to the back side of the lining. Alright, so our interior pieces are done and ready to go. Don't forget to make the 2.5 inch square notches at the bottom corners, just like the exterior. Now we're ready to assemble our bag. So go ahead and lay the exterior pieces right sides together. Clip them in place and then sew along the sides and the bottom with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now open the corner, match the side seams with the bottom seams, clip them in place and then sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. So our back exterior is done. Now you want to assemble the interior exactly the same way, however leave about 4 to 5 inches of opening at the bottom seams in order to turn this bag inside out later. Now with the exterior fabric wrong side out and the interior fabric right side out, you want to insert the interior into the exterior. So the right side of the interior should be touching the right side of the exterior fabric. And of course, you want to make sure that the front side of the exterior is facing the front side of the lining and vice versa. Now clip them in place and then sew all around with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, turn your fabric inside out through the opening hole. Poke the corners and finger press the edges, or you can also iron this. And then go ahead and top stitch. Once you've done top stitching, you want to find the opening hole of the lining. Fold the raw edges towards the wrong side about 3/8 of an inch and then sew to close the opening. Once you've done that, you can put the lining back inside and voila, your tote bag is done. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please don't forget to click that subscribe button so you will not miss any future upload. And see you next time. Goodbye.